In this chapter, we're going to examine operating and financial leverage. And the first question you might ask is, well, what do you mean by operating and financial leverage? So let's talk about what leverage is generally, and then we'll discuss operating versus financial leverage. When we talk about leverage, we're talking about the use of fixed costs to magnify the level of profit or loss. So if we have a profit, if there are good outcomes, leverage increases profitability, increases this positive outcome. Having said that, when we have negative results, when we have losses for the company, the use of leverage will magnify those losses as well. So dividing this leverage into the two areas we're going to talk about, first of all, operating leverage. When we talk about operating leverage, we mean operational fixed costs. So an example might be plant and equipment. It's fixed in that we are going to buy the plant and equipment up front. We pay for it up front. Then we have the use of that equipment over time. But we can't lay the plant and equipment off. It does have the advantage of eliminating labor from the production function. If we use more plant and equipment, we can substitute that for labor in many cases. Having said that, well, first of all, there may be a really good reason to do that. Labor might be expensive. Having said that, labor has the attractive feature that in many cases it's more flexible. You can cut the number of hours that the workforce gets, or in some other way adjust pay to lower levels of revenue. A good example is, in many cases, salespeople are paid on commission. The beauty of that method is not only does it get the incentives right for the salespeople, but it also has an advantage that if the firm isn't selling very much at some point in time, its expenses go down as well. So labor tends to be more flexible. If you take an online retailer like Amazon.com, they don't have any salespeople. Having said that, they bore enormous fixed costs on the front end in order to set up the web presence that they have. So they have a tremendous amount of operational fixed costs in terms of software and computer systems and that sort of thing, that if there's a bad Christmas season, they can't lay off their employees. They really just don't have that many, and they can't cut the number of salespeople. They don't have that many. So when we talk about operational leverage, we're talking about operational fixed costs, the use of those fixed costs, and that's a positive when sales are high, but when sales are low, that may be very much a negative. The second form of leverage we're going to consider in this chapter is financial leverage. The financial leverage, or the financial fixed costs. And what are financial fixed costs? Well, debt financing. Debt financing is typically cheaper than equity financing, and the reason is because the debt holders get paid first. You have to pay the bank first before you pay the shareholders, in essence. So interest has to be paid. It's got the first claim. Unfortunately for the firm, even when the company's losing money, that interest has to be paid. That's why we refer to this debt financing as a fixed cost. You have to make your payments on debt. Because debt financing is cheaper, when profitability is high, when return on assets is high, debt actually increases your return on equity because you're using cheap sources of funds. But if you have debt, a significant amount of debt, a significant amount of financial leverage, and sales go down, you still have those payments to make. It's possible that the firm could find itself in bankruptcy because its fixed financial costs are too great. The alternative would be to use equity. You could sell additional equity as opposed to borrowing money. If the firm needs to raise capital, rather than borrowing money, they could issue equity. They could sell stock. This has the potential to, or it's likely to decrease profits. Equity is a costlier way to raise capital, but firms that don't have any debt never end up in bankruptcy. So you can significantly reduce your risk exposure by selling equity. So these are the two types of leverage we're going to talk about in greater detail in this section: operating leverage and financial leverage.